conditional statements. We're going to be looking at vocabulary words that we're covering are converse, inverse, contrapositive, and then conditional, okay? So first off, a conditional statement is just a statement that's written in the if-then format. For example, if you are absent, then you did not take the test, okay? So the if part is going to always be the hypothesis, and if that hypothesis is true, then the conclusion will probably be true. So, for example, again, if you're absent, you did not take the test. All right, so all we're going to do in example 1 is we're going to identify the hypothesis and the conclusion. And again, the hypothesis is going to follow the word if. The conclusion is going to follow the word then. That's all we're doing. So, what follows the word if on the first example? What follows the word if? A number's last digit is 0. This is your hypothesis. All right, what follows the word then? What comes after the word then? It is divisible by 10. Good, that's your conclusion. All right, let's do the same thing with the next one. What is our hypothesis? If a polygon has 6 sides, then it is a hexagon. What follows the word if? Good, that's your hypothesis. And then our conclusion is going to be a hexagon. It is a hexagon. Sorry. All right, so I'm going to let you guys do the 2 practices. All right, let's just do A and B. And again, you're just going to underline, label it H, or underline, label it C, okay? All right, what was our hypothesis for letter A? What'd you get, Evan? What's our hypothesis for the first part? On the example where it reads, or the practice where it reads, if the angles are congruent, then they have the same angle measure. What part would represent the hypothesis in the statement? What comes after the word if?
What comes after if?
The word if.
If.
You're just reading it, hun.
Because I'm dumb.
No. Look, after the word if. After the word if.
All angles.
The angles are congruent. That's it. The angles are congruent. This is our hypothesis. All right, our conclusion, Andres, what'd you get for your conclusion? They have the same angle measure. Good. Hypothesis for B. Sarah, what did you get for the hypothesis for B? 3 points are not collinear. Good. And then the conclusion, Rebecca, what did you get for the conclusion on this one? They exist in a plane. Good. All right. So that's, you'll have a homework just like that. You're just identifying the hypothesis and the conclusion. Then you'll have some like example 2 where it says, I want you now to write a sentence like that. So if I give you the information or the statement that says the intersection of 2 planes is a line, how can I make this an if-then sentence? How can I break this up so it's an if-then sentence? What do y'all think? Good. If it's a intersection of 2 planes, then it's a line. Good. All right, let me zoom that out a bit so y'all can see it. And you might have wanted to written a different statement, and that's fine. If you said, if it's a line, then it's an intersection of 2 planes. That would be fine. Some people wrote, if 2 planes intersect, then it's a line. So it just doesn't have to be in specific wording. Just needs to be broken up, okay? All right, let's look at B. B reads, the measure of an acute angle is between 0 and 90. How do you think we would break that one up? The measure of an acute angle is between 0 and 90. What was that?
If the measure of acute.
Oh, wait.
If it is between 0 and 90, then it's a measurement, or it's a measure of an acute angle.
Okay. If we can even say if its measure is between 0 and 90, then it's an acute angle. Okay? Good, those are good examples.
sides, then it's a polygon.
Perfect. If it has 6 sides, then it's a polygon. If it's a polygon, then it has 6 sides, that's correct as well, okay? So if it has 6 sides, then it's a polygon. Good. The next one, a triangle equals 180.
If it equals 180, then
If it equals 180, then it is a triangle. If it equals 180, then it's a triangle. You could have put if it's a triangle it equals 180, that would be fine too. Okay? All right, counterexample, we saw this yesterday. A reminder that this is just proving something to be false, okay? So, only if it's false do I want an example, a counterexample, okay? So it says, if you are making a B in the class, then you have an 88. Is that true? If you're making a B in the class, you have to have an 88 then.
no.
No.
What else could you have?
You can have
83.
You can have an 83. We can say false, could have an 83. Okay? Some people give me a range. No, you can have anything, miss, between 0 and 89. Sure. Whatever you want to write as your counterexample. All right, if you multiply 2 numbers, then the product will always be positive. Is that true? If I multiply 2 numbers, the answer will always be positive.
No.
What's a counterexample?
Negative number is 5.
A negative number times a positive number. Negative 3 times 3 is?
Negative 9.
A negative 9, and that's a counterexample. So just like yesterday, it could be a picture, could be a sentence, can be an equation, whatever it is, to prove it to be false, okay? So I'm going to have you guys try these next 2, okay? All right, that first one, we're missing a word there, right? If you play sports, then you are in baseball. True or false? All right, what else could you be in? Football. Of course, the football players would say football. You could be in basketball. Mm-hmm. Can be in soccer. Can be in tennis. Can be in any sport. All right. If you subtract 2 numbers, then the difference will always be positive. What's in the counterexample? What is it?
16.
8 minus 16. 8 take away 16. What would our answer be? A negative 8. Good. All right. When you're ready, we'll go to the last page. Just to forewarn you, that last page is all writing. I warned you before we started chapter 2. I said this was going to be the chapter where we do a lot of writing. Okay? I know. All right. Conditional statement. This is what we have been looking at. This is the if-then format where we make sentences to be read as if this, then this. All right. The converse means we're going to flip. We're going to flip the hypothesis and the conclusion. So I kind of color-coded here what our hypothesis and conclusion is. And if you notice in the example, all I did was I moved the green statement to be follow the if and the purple statement to follow the then. So all we're doing is flipping the hypothesis and the conclusion. We're just flipping those 2. When it's the inverse, all we're going to do is negate it. Some students like to remember that as we add the word not to it. Somewhere we add the word not. So here it says we would say if 2 angles are not or do not have the same measure, then they are not congruent. And that's what we wrote down here. Do not, is not, has not, cannot, whatever makes the sentence flow, it has to have that word not in it, okay? And then the contrapositive. Do you all agree this is the longer vocab word we have here than all out of the 4?
Yeah.
Right? So with that one, you have to do both. That means you're going to flip it and negate it, okay? You're going to flip it and negate it. You're going to flip it and add that word not in there. It's nice when you do it in this order, though, because then once we get to this not piece, then all we have to do is flip them and not really think too much about flipping and negating it all at the same time, okay? All right, so lucky for us, we already have the if-then statement already done. And just to save us some time, we're just going to put that goes right there, okay? Just so we don't have to write it out. So my conditional statement is if an angle is acute, then it has a measure of 45. Do you think that is a true or false statement? False, because if it's acute, it can be anything less than 90. We can say it's 41 degrees if we wanted to, okay? All right, the converse. We're going to flip it now, okay? We're going to flip. All right, we're going to look at what follows the word. We were going to flip it here, okay? So I wrote flip there. All right, let's highlight the hypothesis. And then we'll highlight the conclusion. Okay? All right, we're going to flip this. So instead of writing if an angle is acute, then it has a measure 45, what should follow the word if? A measure 45, good. If I should use my pen. If it has, so I'm doing the orange first. If it has a measure of 45 degrees, then the angle is acute. Is that true or false? If it has a measure 45, then the angle is acute. That's true. Okay. Right, if it's 45, it has to be considered acute. All right, the next one, the inverse. Inverse, the in, it starts with the letter N, the not. All right, just so you can kind of start remembering like little things to help you remember. All right, inverse is the one with the not. We're going to add a not to the original statement. Go back to the original statement, the one at the very top. How can I negate that? How can I make that not true? If an angle is not acute, all right, so I'm going to add a word not here, then it does not have a measure of 45. All right, so we're just going to rewrite that. If an angle is not acute, then it does not have a measure of 45 degrees. True or false? If the angle is not acute, then it cannot have a measurement of 45. That's true. Good. All right, you see how we already added the word nots up here and we already have them highlighted? All we have to do is flip them now. Because the contrapositive, remember the longest one, this one always does both. All right, so we're going to look at what we have at the very top. With the knots, we're just going to flip it. So what should be the first thing we write then? If it does not have a measure of 45 degrees, then the angle is not acute. True or false? If it does not have a measurement of 45, then it cannot be acute. False. Good. All right, so I'm going to have you try one without me, okay?